Okay, hello everybody. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about prefabs. Now, what are prefabs? Prefabs are essentially groups of objects, instanced objects, that can be used as kind of building pieces. So what I've done here, I've opened up a level and I constructed a outpost, because it's a nice example of modularity. They can be used to very quickly build out a set using predetermined templates. And CIG use these absolutely loads in their procedural system. From what we've seen on the ATVs, one big example of this recently is the procedural city system. That uses prefabs arranged in a certain way to create building blocks. Likewise, in the PU, in the live PU, they've demonstrated prefabs being used to create outposts procedurally, used to create the derelict ships, and in the future they're used to procedurally create space stations and change the layout of them based on different parameters, and they're procedurally made. And those are procedurally made using prefabs. And these, so what are these prefabs then? So what I've done here, I've opened up a library of stuff. If I just enable that. And what we can see here are some of the prefabs that you might come across in the PU. So one such example is this. This is a fairly generic storage room from an outpost you might find on DMR. You can see in here it's got all the props and the like in here. And we've got some other building blocks here. So this is like a standard room, and some other room pieces here with some bits left out so that they can be dynamically changed. And we also have some prop pieces. So we've got some shelves here, and we also have some of these are just not that one. Is it add-ons? Here we are. So this is another prefab here with some of the crates. So these will be used in conjunction with the fences here. So not the fences, the shelves here. So you see they slot right in. And we can see that lights, sound nodes, and AI tags can be attached to the prefabs as well. So they're really handy for a variety of situations. And you see we've got another prefab set here as well. These are just props that are laid out in one of the bedrooms. And if you want to see one of those in a bit more detail, I'll show you that in a moment. We also have for outposts these wall pieces, and these wall pieces, like you can see here, essentially just slot into place. So if I just change the grid scale to 1, you can see that a bit easier. You can see here they just kind of snap perfectly into place. And in here I've built out a small storage room, and just like a custom hallway here. So this will be the airlock. I'm gonna leave shadows. In fact, I'll turn shadows back on so you can see what it looks like. It's not properly lit yet, but this is a room I've more or less completed, which is literally 2 prefabs and some lighting through the window. And this is all created using prefabs very quickly. So what I'll do, I'll show you guys how to access this stuff where it's all saved, and I'll show you how to make your own prefabs as well. These are especially useful for our applications, particularly for lighting, because we can make lighting prefabs that have a light fixture and an emitting light as well. That's what I'm going to show you today. They can also be used for other applications, of course, but the one I find I'm using most commonly are, of course, lights. So how do we find these prefabs then? I'm going to just close down this library here and the walls and stuff. I'll just close down Outpost, and I'll just create a new folder. I'll call it Tut, and then I'll make a new layer and I'll call it CryEngine Tut. CryEngineering assets. There we are, and I'll put that in a layer there. A folder here. So now we've got an empty space to play with. So what we'll need for this is the we'll need the database view. So under tools and then database view, this is what we'll have. And particularly we are interested in the prefabs library. So what we can do is we can open some prefabs up. So where are these saved? Well, I'll show you where they're saved in the live build. So if I go into my asset directory here, they're found in data and then prefabs, and they are XML files found in here. When you open them up, this is what you'll find. These are not encrypted, but they're baked. We need to convert them. So if we just go up one level to the data directory, and we'll open up our tools directory, and what we'll need is the Holo Explorer converter, which is the Data Forge converter. I will link it in the description, and then we just take the prefabs directory and drag and drop onto the Data Forge tool. I'm going to leave that there because I've already done it, and then once it's converted, it will quickly convert. It only takes a few seconds, and then we just copy and then go to where our CryEngine build is, and same place, so it would be equivalent to data, which for me will be bulkheads. I'll open the project directory here, and then you see we just paste this folder into here, and we can see all the prefabs are in here, and in our case we have some custom ones for bulkheads, and I've got some for some of my own projects as well. So say we want to load in something interesting like a derelict ship. How would we do that? Well, it's very straightforward. So in the prefabs library, just go to open, and then by default it will open up the prefabs directory. So at the very top where levels, libs and objects will be, it'll be prefabs. And for example, if you want a derelict ship, we would go into PU, and then we would go to derelict, and then we could pick one. So say for example we want the Aegis, let's do the Javelin. We'd go into Aegis Javelin components. We wouldn't use the XML called Javelin. Likewise for a Freelancer, we wouldn't use Freelancer or Starfarer. These are different. These prefabs load in CIGs object containers which have all the data in them. At current, these cannot be used in vanilla CryEngine, so we have to use the components pieces. So essentially what happens is the Starfarer or Freelancer XMLs, the prefabs of them, if I just load up actually, you know what, I'll switch. I'll go to Starfarer. If I load up the Starfarer XML, we'll see here that there's different variants of, that's variables, I don't want that. There's crying out loud. Just pin that there. There's different variants of the Starfarer. So we've got a couple of planet crashes, sand, ice, space scattered, etc. But if I drag that in, we will find that it won't load into the level. And the reason for this is it uses the CIG object container. So we can see here in the level explorer, the prefab is calling up object container modifiers and tag points. So these obviously cannot be used because we do not have the object container system in vanilla CryEngine. But what these do call up are component prefabs, and that's what we can modify. So if the same thing for the Starfarer, if we go to PU derelict misc Starfarer and load up the components, these are all the prefabs that the prefab that doesn't work are calling up. So for example, if we want the body, we can bring in the body. Likewise, if you want a wing back left, we can call it in here. And let's take a look at what's inside these. So if I select the body, I'm just gonna save real quick. And I'm gonna open up, just bring this out of it, bring that down. And you can see as well we've got ship components and things as well. But say we want to have a look at what's inside the body derelict, so we can easily, we can go in, and we can see it's loaded up some portals and viz areas as well. These are for optimization purposes. It's very handy. but there are also light entities and other things in here as well. Sometimes. I think our version's modified to remove a good chunk of things. I can't remember why. But if we open up the prefab here, so in the properties editor, if we go to open and expand it, we can see all the different components that go into a prefab. And many of them are made up of brushes. And these brushes are and geometries are the same meshes you will find in the Explorer window on the right hand side here. So if I go to Derelicts, Misc, Starfarer, Body Exterior, we can see it's the same model, but obviously all the internals are not loaded in. So using CIGs prefabs like this, for example with a Starfarer, severely cuts down on the production time of a set. And this expands to well beyond that. So for example in Vega I used loads of prefabs for duplicating things like landing pads or lights. So if I wanted to make one change, I didn't have to do it to every single one. So that's what we'll do here. So if we go back to the outpost, I'm just going to open it up. So it's like just a nice little basic set. Let's go, and I'll go to light. I'll just make a new layer, call it lighting, and I'll just unhide those. So we're going to go back over to the little outpost we have. I have even, and let's go inside. And we'll turn shadows on. Okay, and let's pick a room that hasn't been lit, like this one here. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll make a new prefab. And what this prefab will do, it'll have some lights in it. And we'll modify these lights. And I can kind of show you how they work. So if I go into brush, and what we'll do is we'll create the lights that we're going to make a prefab out of. So if I go into here and then maybe just turn off the preview, I don't need it. Got building sets, human, high tech, prop, and then let's find something. Convenient lamp, light and lamp desk, let's have a look. That could work. I'm just going to turn off shadows for performance reasons. Yeah, that's what I'll do. And then I'll turn the grid scale down to 125. And I'll just snap that onto this desk here. You can see there's already a lamp here, but for the purpose of the demonstration, I'll just make my own. Maybe this guy wants two different ones. I'll rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is bring in a light, because our light needs to light things. So for the case of CryEngine 5, I'm going to go to components, and I'm going to go to light, and I'm going to go to point light. I'll bring in a point light here. And I'll kind of place that. I'll turn off grid snapping, and I'll kind of place it here. You can see here that's why it's not glowing, because it's got a replacement on it. So the material's broken, but I'll make that its own video for fixing these. Because it's pretty straightforward. Just put that there, so I'm going to kind of place it here. Okay. Cool. And then I'm going to turn shadows on. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tweak this a little bit. So I'm going to call this LGT lamp ambient 1. And I'm going to edit the components of it and take the radius down to 2. And then diffuse multiplier, I'm going to set to 0.05. So it's only a nice light. 0.25. I'll maybe make that 0.25 as well. Nope, okay. 0.05. 0.05. So it's quite a nice, subtle lamp. It's not really anything more than that. Attenuation bulb size, I will make 0.025, and I'm going to bring that down some more. So you see only a slight illumination we're getting from this. Bring the radius down to 1.25. A lot more. to bring the color screen down a bit. So that's going to be like kind of our ambient light or our secondary light from that, and we're going to make another one. I'm going to go to lights again and then make a projector light. And this is going to be the actual light source of our lamp. So just rotate that 90 degrees. And move it around there. So you see the second light we have here this is purely for simulating some nice cheap bounce light. It's just something I like to do. And I never put shadows on the ambient light because it's a point light and they use more shadow memory. But you can for some circumstances if you wish. Okay, and then for this I'm going to choose 0.5, 0.5. Okay. And then I'm going to turn shadows on. Because for a projector light you can do that. And I'm going to change the actual projected texture. Now what is this useful for? Well, this is good for changing the shape of spotlights, for example from a circle to a rectangle. So that's kind of what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go to textures, I'm going to go to lights, and I'm going to go to generic, and I'm going to pick one. So you can see that some of it's softer as well, so I'm going to go for a soft one. And we can see here it's changed the projected texture, which is good. I'm just going to rotate it out a little. So that's pretty much it. So it's kind of a nice white neutral. I might make it a little bit warmer. Maybe to, let's have a look. Nice and desaturated. Or I can make it cooler. Yeah, let's go for a cool. And I'm going to change the color of the ambient light. Okay, so that's pretty much it set up. So we've got a lamp here with some lighting attached to it. So what we're going to do now is actually create a prefab. So in the database view, in Prefabs library, I'm going to click add the library, and I'm going to put this under Alex as a folder, and then I'm going to call it CryEngineering lamp. In fact, CryEngineering score prefabs. And then I'm going to make a new item. I'm going to create a new group. I'm going to call it lighting. In fact, high tech alpha lights. I'm going to call this lamp 01. And it'll create a empty prefab. Now this prefab is empty. It's got absolutely no data in it whatsoever. So we're going to add some data to it. So what we'll do is select the entity. We'll select the lamp. Ambient lamp. Wait 1 second. I forgot to rename this to light. Lamp dir for directional 01 or 1. So I'm going to, in the editor here, in the level explorer, I'm going to select lamp directional, lamp ambient, and lamp desk. And I'm going to make a new prefab. There's a few ways we can do this. We can right click on the lamp 01 prefab we just made and click on assign, replace prefab with selected objects, and that will create a prefab. Or there's other menus where you can actually create a prefab from the selected objects as well. Personally, this is how I prefer to do it, but it's up to yourself. But now what we can do is, say if we put move our lamp over to the left here, I don't know, maybe there, and we want to move it to, say, have two of them to the right, and we want them to be the same, this is where things get cool. If we click on one of the lamps we made, and click open, we can say select the directional, and say we want to change the color of it to, say, a warm color. Nice saturated warm color, and it should update it. Or you click on the refresh button here, reload library, and it will update it. And as you can see here, we've pretty much changed the light. So we can do that the same if we open up this other prefab and say we want to turn the directional component off. We can do that. So if we select that, and I'll just save, and then reload the library, it will turn off the lights. So that's pretty much how I did it in Vega. So if I open up another one here and I say choose I have one here somewhere. Here we go. This is one of the prefabs I used in Vega. So let's see, check an example here. So I'm just going to turn shadows off. Let's see if this loads. It should do. See, this is one of the buildings on the Vega airfield. So it's just made of some brushes. Likewise on this one here. Another Vega prefab. Also got a vehicle bay. But this is using some old assets from the old build, so it needs updating. And this can go, for example, to some landing pads, which obviously need updating. This is one of the large landing pads I created just for outside using some Olisar assets. Or we can have this kind of version of an anti-air tower. Obviously it needs updating because, again, old assets. And the crash. Okay, lighting here. So what I've done, I've opened up one of my lighting prefabs. So we've got a few of these, so let's see if we can load this up. I just need to change a console variable because, as you can see, my geometry is a little bit bugged. This is just down to the build I'm using. It's currently a preview build for 5.5, so some things aren't quite right. Right, so if I go into this empty room here and let's say I bring in a klaxon spin, it might work, it might not. So this is interesting because this one has a flow graph attached to it. And in the old build, I hope it works in this one, this actually spun. And I'll make it its own video on how to set one of these up. If I go to game, and then hopefully enable physics AI, it has a little flow graph that makes it spin. It's pretty neat. Yeah, so like I said, experimental build. Let's see what else we got. So I'll turn the I'll go into the environment editor and just turn things down. Turn it down to about maybe there, and show you guys what I kind of got. So one example I got here are streetlights. So these are just very simple streetlights that were used on the airfield. See here? So if I go into these and maybe just pick, you know, these lights here, and then deactivate them, it'll update on all the prefabs. It's pretty neat. Or I had this one, which is one of the airfield towers, which is a little bit broken. Alright, here it is. Here's one that was on. So these were used in the final scene, those were not. These were used elsewhere. And then I got other things, for example, like stuff for hallways. So if I go in here, and maybe just go in this room here, which is quite dim. Go to wall light here. As you can see, we've got a wall light. This was used outside Crandall's office. Maybe just slap that against there. And some fluorescent roof lights. Right there. So if we go in here, another thing I've got, for example, are what I call runner lights, and these are used all over the place. So these are just little lights that kind of clip onto the side of geometry. I'm just going to have to enable this debug draw again. So for example, I'd put it onto on somewhere like here if I wanted, and they could be used as little runners, and these can be added to prefabs as well, so you can actually nest prefabs. But that's kind of what they're used for. They're mainly used, in my case at least, for fun little ways of they're mainly used as fun little ways to really quickly light a scene. There's no shadow variant of a roof light, so fluorescent, things like that. These are all low-tech ones, so they wouldn't fit in very well. But that's kind of what a prefab does. They're used for very easily and very quickly lighting a scene by allowing you to drag and drop geometry and lights in together and be able to modify them, and that's how you make one. They're very, very straightforward. Anyway, that'll conclude it for this one, guys. Next time I'm going to talk about, well, actually go through and actually block out a scene for you guys to take a look at, over ship and stuff. But until then, I'll see you later, and thanks a lot for watching.